However you feel about any UFC fighter's comments, philosophies, and/or views, not all of them are appropriate for or in line with the corporate world. More specifically, TKO Group, ESPN, and Disney. ESPN is owned by Disney, and the UFC is currently under contract with ESPN. This happened this way because the UFC has long envisioned themselves being one of the big four, right up there with the NFL and NBA. The associated branding equals growth. Professionalism is a part of those leagues. Professionalism, I might add, is a different concept from freedom of speech. Unfortunately, people of all walks of life with all types of views do not realize this. Dana has always let fighters say whatever in any direction. Tyron Woodley with his irritating conference antics. Colby Covington with his even more irritating conference antics. Adesanya in his drunk Desanya mode when he ruined Dricus' outstanding victory. And he even defended Sean Strickland when someone in Media Row said, leash.
Don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
I'm like...
Free speech. And control what people say. Gonna tell people what to believe. Gonna tell people... I don't f***ing tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother.
Sean Strickland's UFC middleweight championship reign may have been mockingly applauded by Israel Adesanya, but the fact remains it was he that Strickland soundly defeated in his own backyard. Whatever your opinion is of him, whichever way he makes you feel, Sean remains one of the world's best in the UFC middleweight division. One can always say that Israel Adesanya had an off night, or that the internet expose got to him, but that's part of it. That's part of being a champion. The night he knocked out Alex Pereira, his mind was Jedi level focused. That was the championship medal that was missing the night he fought Strickland. Sean took Dricus Dallas Page to a split decision in what I saw as a close fight, not a robbery. Had Sean won, I wouldn't have been surprised either. It was a rough and violent fight as well. At the time, it did feel like the jump from Abusupian Magomedov to Izzy felt exaggerated to fill in a spot for a locked venue. Media and fans pretty much, and reasonably so, dismissed the fight as a gimme for Stylebender. Sean took to press conferences, catering to Australia, again reasonably so, and this organic bubbling grew exponentially. You could feel it, and Sean ended up dominating all 5 rounds, maybe save 1. For a long time, years in fact, Strickland was screaming for a title shot. He incessantly said he has put in the work and he had proved himself. He was telling us all the truth. To even go 25 minutes with Adesanya, let alone win with dominance while in Australia, is proof enough. But to turn around in what came across as a rushed booking against Dricus, the man who finished Robert Whittaker in 2023, and go 25 minutes with him in a close losing effort that was brutal on both participants, makes his status as a fighter undeniably elite. On the other hand, Sean has an issue with his mouth when dealing with the sports world, the media world, the corporate world, if you will. When Deshaun went to fight Dricus in Canada, I feel he really ramped up his persona. They even had Nina Drama spend what seemed like the entire fucking fight camp the way they were talking about each other with him, and for a few children, it worked. I remember comments in those videos of how heartwarming and wholesome they were. I'm not making that up. They tried to tone down Sean, at least in presentation. I believe the media has some responsibility as well when dealing with people like Sean or any professional athlete. MMA media is an entirely different thing that can be a series of videos, so I'm not diving in for this one. But I will say that MMA media needs to retire the practice of asking questions that generate clickbait headlines. Even the UFC 300 pep rally was filled with antagonistic soundbite baiting questions. Pathetic. On that note, can you please stop asking fighters how it feels to be there? We all know. Anyway, Sean tapped into an audience that was always there. He just got the right people to pay attention. A prime example would be Timothy Poole, who has one of the largest followings for his live streams, and an insane amount of monthly Patreon subs. Or how about Jeremy from The Quarry, Timothy Poole's rival / online friend? People like that spread your star. That sounded kinda weird. I mean, spread your celebrity with one click within 3 minutes. Maybe Dana and company, coach, team, whomever, thought if Sean saw his potential and the life he could have, he'd settle down and play the game a little better. Well, fuck that. Prior to these conferences, but after defeating Izzy, Sean was doing shit like holding people at gunpoint in the street until the cops came. Granted, this person ran to hide in his driveway and Sean initially mistook him as a burglar via his ring cam or whatever doorbell cam he has. Fair enough, I'd probably do the same. But add it to this dude walking in his own house with a bud or relative and being sus when people that love him jump out and he postures to pull out a firearm for his surprise birthday. Sure, that can be considered a little froggy even by my standards, but not necessarily the worst. But when you add these optics to everything Sean has said and done prior to going to Canada, one could understand why the UFC would go a different direction with him other than a rematch for the belt or a rematch with Izzy. After the loss to Dricus, Sean repeatedly said the belt doesn't matter to him, but prior to the fight with Adesanya, that's all he was asking for. I think a lot of people seem to forget that. To me, it feels like Sean wants nothing more than to reclaim that belt, because it does indeed mean everything to him, at least professionally. For now, his next challenge isn't involving a title. Oddly enough, it isn't involving a rematch with Jared Cannonier either.
Me gusta cuando bailas así. I
must admit, it's a little disappointing that I have to say my thoughts on Paulo Costa haven't really changed since the Squab Talk video I did on him and Khamzat Chimaev, the fight that has yet to happen. In his fight with Robert Whittaker, he did what I was expecting. I have previously stated that Paulo is always in entertaining fights. That hasn't changed. If you visit his Twitter, you'd think he's on a 9-fight winning streak the way that he memes about. Paulo is certainly entertaining on his socials, and many of his fans stand with him in solidarity even in loss, which is not common for a fighter in MMA these days, especially one with a resume like Costa's. Unfortunately, Paulo has yet to defeat any active fighter in the middleweight division. I'm not even discrediting Luke Rockhold, who had a positive outcome in his latest effort over on Karate Combat, but Bohashinya has remained in the top 10 of the division since 2019 with that one win. This booking follows a line of logic that would agree with what I just said about Strickland. I still believe Paulo was changed forever after that Izzy fight. His mystique from the Yoel Romero fight and the domination of a Whataburger eating without the fries Johnny Hendricks was broken, and Adesanya making him his hump puppy after the ref called it didn't help his ego. People have seemed to have forgotten that Paulo was deeply offended by Stylebender giving him a quick pump. It took a while for Costa to wedge himself in on the joke. From there, he became a meme master on X and Instagram. I think Paulo has evolved into someone that is good for the company to a certain degree, but he needs to start winning. This experiment has been going on longer than Mackenzie Dern's, and yes, I understand a Brazilian champion is desired, one with star power. Defeating Sean Strickland would put him right in the conversation again, given his star power. That were to happen, it would be a wild turnaround for him, right? One I would in fact applaud. It feels as if Paulo has realized his value in MMA and beyond it, even if he isn't a top tier fighter. Paulo Costa has looks that are ready for Hollywood, but he chooses to fight. His ability to tap into social media and flesh out a unique persona is evidence of his realization of self-worth. Costa is going to have a certain fan base no matter what happens in this next fight. Costa and Strickland would likely get along outside of having to fight, but Costa isn't as vocal about his views and life principles as Sean is, and isn't as divisive or offensive when he does speak up, even when he's saying certain crazy words. I'm here to let you know that I speak for the black community in giving Paulo a pass and using the word nigga right alongside Cody Garbrandt and Mike Perry. All three of them are blacker than Daniel Cormier. I would like to think that the pressure is leaning more on Paulo than Sean, but he has been kept relevant since 2018. He could lose and get Hamzat next, regardless of the outcome between he and Whitaker. Costa keeps coming in short in fights that carry weight. I don't consider his victory over Rockhold all that noteworthy, and though he has a little pizzazz and a few pretty strikes, he remains to me one that falls just short of being elite, unless he finishes Sean Strickland. But I still have this sense that the UFC and TKO are not in favor of Deshaun being a face for the company in any division. I think they want personalities like him around, but siloed off to contain PR policies. Strickland is like that friend you love, but don't take him anywhere because he always gets your crew into drama. I think that's how he's viewed by the corporate rooms and probably even some fellow fighters. A couple of things come to mind when pondering how this fight goes down. The Eraser is built for 2 rounds in my opinion. I don't think his cardio is awful, but I don't think it's as good as Sean's. Costa is also terrible at leg kick defense. Now, I don't know how much a leg kick will play into his fight with Strickland, but his last 3 opponents landed every leg kick they attempted, albeit not very many. Strickland doesn't throw a lot of leg kicks either, but maybe he will throw a few extra in this fight. I'm sure if I see this, Eric Nixick sees it as well. Sean's defense is tight, very tight, and Paulo has a tendency to headhunt. I wouldn't be surprised to see Strickland work the body and land jab after jab, angling out of Paulo's aggression for the full fight. But don't be completely fooled. Even though Sean's defense is tight, Dricus showed us how to get through it. I doubt this is going to the ground at all, and if it does, it won't be long enough for it to matter. A submission victory for either would be insanity, but it isn't impossible. It could be Strickland that marches down a waiting Costa, and one of those head kicks with no telegraph stops him dead in his tracks. It happened to Robert Whittaker, and it almost got him an L. It would truly be one of the more impressive career turnarounds in recent memory. I feel like Strickland needs a finish in order to secure a title fight afterward. Paulo winning with either finish or decision keeps him in discussion for title contention, and it will be a game of wait and see for a few months for him. Why? Because I think something is looming for either one of them. I think there's a big plan here. Also, I think the fight is closer than what some people realize, and it is a marketable one. But I'm also sensing this fight is set up to set up something else, or someone else. I'm not going to give a prediction for this fight, but I will give you a prediction. Win or lose for Paulo and Sean, one of them will be facing Khamzat Chimaev, win or lose against Whittaker.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.